Angingang, bang, kang, ka, The correctional officer looked at the dude and he said, excuse me? And the inmate looked at the correctional officer and he went, Anganga, Vanganga, and the correctional officer said, I'm sorry, I don't understand. He was standing there with his eyes, you know what I mean, wide in pure confusion. He did not know what this inmate was talking about, and it was his first day in the dormitory. This is a story that might offend you. And if you're easily offended, you might want to click away now, because there's going to be things that are said in the story that you might not like and you might not agree with because it's making fun of people. But this was the reality of what happened in prison, and this is how convicts did what they did the past time. Back to the story. And that's what the inmate is telling the correctional officer, and he's fresh on his shift, relieving the other shift. And he walks into the dormitory, and this is after he does mail call, because one of the first things that a correctional officer does when he's working evening shift is right after he does his count, he calls mail call, and he calls the letters, you know, whatever the mail is, and he calls the people up to get their mail. And he called this one dude, and the dude walked up to him to get the letter. And this is this correctional officer's very first day on the job. He went through the academy. We had never seen him before. Everybody in the dorm knows that this correctional officer's green. This dude's fresh fish. So they're gonna mess with him. That's just the way it is. If you think that inmates only mess with other inmates for being fresh fish, that's wrong. Inmates and other correctional officers mess with the new correctional officers too. They get joked. So he's calling out the mail, and he calls this one dude's name, man. And these dudes had been planning to mess with this dude, you know, unbeknownst to me or to a lot of people. So the dude walks up to get to the mail, and during count time, it's really quiet inside prisons. You don't make no noise. You know, the officers, you know, a cool officer's not going to sweat you if you just, you know, if you and somebody are passing a few words back and forth, he's not going to sweat that. Now, one of them diehard police officers, if you say one word, they might come at you and hog tie you and drag you back to the hole, you know what I mean, for uttering one word during count. But most of them dudes are, you know, veterans, and they're not going to really sweat you on that. But anyway, he calls the mail call, you know, one mail after the next, you know what I mean? And he calls the mail, and the dude walks up to get the letter. He hands the dude the letter, and he said, and the dude looks at him and goes, and the officer's like, and everybody's looking because the dude who did that had never done that before. And the officer's like, excuse me? And the dude's like, and the dude took his letter and he walked off, and the officer's looking around, and everybody's kind of just looking. Nobody's laughing or nothing because they don't know what just happened, because the dude who got the letter had never done that before. And so he walks back to his rack. You know what I mean? He sits down. The officer finishes calling mail. Once count is approved, on the radio, you'll hear the front of the prison, the person who's in charge of everything and making sure all the counts are good. They'll come on the radio and they say, you know, count clear, and they'll mention the time, 2301 or whatever the time may be, 0304, count clear. And when they say count clear, the inmate, the officer doesn't have to say count clear, everybody gets up. It's cool when it comes over the radio. As soon as the words count clear, inmates can start walking around again and moving around. And the officer's not going to be like, oh, I'm the one who's supposed to say it. As long as it comes through that radio, count clear, people start moving around. Dorm starts moving around, you know what I mean? Time goes by. You know, yard call and call outs and all that stuff. And once the sun sets at the prison, that's usually right before the sun sets, that's when yard call ends. So in Louisiana during the summertime, you know, yard call can go all the way till, you know, 6, 7 o'clock in the evening, because it's still daylight outside, you know, 7:30 in the evening, and they'll shut it down, you know, once it get close to the evening, and they'll shut the yard down and they'll do their final count, because, you know, people are allowed to play football, as, you know, football teams, etc. So anyway, the dorm opens. The yard opens, people leave. At the end of the yard, they do another count. They close the prison back down. It's count time. And after this count time, count clear, the dorm starts moving around again. And the dude who messed with the police officer, the rookie, he came back up to him, and, you know, people got to go up to the dude, to the officer, to ask questions. You know, you might ask, you know, I need a call out sheet for sick call, or I didn't get my meds, or Can you see if the other key got my mail? I was supposed to get a letter, stuff like that, you know. So he goes up to the officer. You got to ask them for certain forms, you know what I mean? You might want to get a form. If you want to get an ARP, you better not ask them people for ARP. You better send somebody's crash test dummy to get ARP. But anyway, ARP is how you write a police officer up in prison, because inmates have a right to file a grievance against correctional officers, and it's called an ARP. Anyway, the dude goes up to the police officer and he's like, gungity gung 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 chung. And the officer kind of jumps like this, and he's looking at everybody because of what just happened earlier in the day when it was mail call and he handed him the letter, and the dude spoke to him. And now the dude's looking like this. And so he's like, I don't know what he's saying. And at this point, everybody realizes that the convict is messing with the greenhorn officer. And so we can tell. And so now people are just trying to play it off. And some dudes are chuckling. I'm sitting on my rack. I'm like, man, these people are crazy. And so the dude talks to the police officer again. And the officer says, I'm sorry, I don't understand you. And the officer goes, the inmate looks at the officer and he goes, tongue, 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 tongue. And the officer's like, he goes to grab his mace. And everybody's like, nah, Cap is cool. He don't speak English. And the greenhorn officer, he gets on the radio because now he's looking at this dude. He got his hand on his mace, and he's like, come in, dorm 3-4, dorm 3-4, come in, looking for assistance. The captain comes walking through the dorm, the captain of the whole ship, and he walks up to the officer, and the officer's like, man, hey. And dudes are watching now. Everybody's watching because they know he's intimidated by this dude who's talking to him crazy, who he doesn't realize really speaks English, but is playing this dude for, a joke. And the cap comes up to him. The cap's like, what's wrong? And the greenhorn officer looks at the captain. He's like, Captain, he said, when we did our before shift meeting, nobody told me I was going to be in a dorm with a guy who was retarded. And the captain says, retarded. He said, ain't no retarded people in this dorm. This is a normal dorm. You know what I mean? He said, and the cap was like, man, half these dudes are half stupid anyway. You know what I mean? And he's messing with him, and he's laughing with him. He's like, what you talking about? And the greenhorn looks at the dude who was talking like that. He said, hey, inmate, come here. And the dude walks up to him, and the captain's sitting there. He said, what's your problem? And the dude kind of smiles, and he goes, hung dung dung dung. And the captain knows the inmate who's doing this. And the captain he laughs. He said, oh, he realizes what's going on, that they're playing this dude for a rookie. And the captain says, he's speaking Hmong Hmong. And the officer goes, Hmong Hmong? He said, I knew we had Spanish and Vietnamese inmates, but I never knew we had any that spoke Hmong Hmong. And the cap said, yeah, Hmong Hmong. He said, you don't know about Hmong Hmong? And the greenhorn's like, no, Cap, I don't know about Hmong Hmong. He's like, nah, that's Mongolian Mongoloid. And he said, Mongolian Mongoloid? He said, yeah, he's Mongolian Mongoloid, Hmong Hmong. He said, there's another inmate in here who understands him. He said, just ask him. He'll relay the messages back and forth for you. He'll translate. And so the captain points to another inmate he knows. These are convicts. He says, hey, come here. And the other dude walks up, and he's like, man, can you translate for them? He says, sure. And the dude goes, hung dung 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 dung. And by this time, a bunch of the people in the dorm are just cracking up laughing, man. I'm sitting on my rack and I'm looking at this. I'm like, man, these dudes are crazy, man, messing with this man like that, right? And so the dude who's translating, who got called to translate it up, he's kind of looking like he's figuring out what's going on, but he don't quite get it because he wasn't there. And the captain looks at him and says, say, and he says the dude's name, and I don't remember the dude's name, but he said, he's speaking, he said, can you relay and translate the language that y'all speak where y'all from? And the dude's still looking, and the cap says, Hmong Hmong. And the dude's like, yeah. He said, I could translate for him, Cap. I got you, heard me? And the dude he looks at the dude, and the dude goes, fung dung 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 fung. He said, he said, look here. He said, Cap, you heard me? He said, our officer, when he handed him the mail, he ain't like the way he handed the mail to him, you heard me? And the cap said, how'd you hand the mail to that dude? He said, I just called his names and handed it to him. He said, well, I mean, he's obviously offended by something. He said, and the cap looked down and said, ask him how he handed it to him. And the dude goes, tung, 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 tung. Now you had two dudes speaking Hmong Hmong. And the dude looks at the other dude. He goes, and the dude, this is absurd, I know. In prison, they do what they can to pass the time. And when the dude goes, he looks at the cap. He says, say, cap, he was saying that when you hand on the mail, you don't hand nobody who's mung the letter facing down, because that's like disrespecting the family who wrote the letter. So you hand it to them with the address and the recipient's name on top. You heard me, Cap? And the Cap said, I understand that's a respect issue. And he tells that to the greenhorn, and the greenhorn's like, well, I didn't know that. And he said, well, can you ask him if there's going to be a problem here tonight? And the dude looks at the other dude and he goes, Fung Dung Long, you heard me? And the dude goes, Fung. He said, it's cool. And the dude goes, and the dude's like, look, man, be cool. He said, say, Cap, he said, ain't gonna be no problems, but he appreciate you if you start letting these greenhorns know these rookies, before they come in here, how convicts operate. And the Cap's like, I understand, ain't gonna be no problem. Y'all can go to y'all rack. And then next thing you know, they talking for a minute, and the captain's looking at the dude, and the captain finally, he's walking out, he looks at him. He says, Officer so-and-so. He said, you do know they joking with you, right? And he's like, what you mean? He said, man, these dudes are joking with you. He said, you're a rookie. They playing with you. He said, oh, man. He said, should I write them up? He said, man, don't write them guys up. Them guys are just passing their time. You're in here passing time with them. Learn how to communicate and be friends with them, and your time and your shift will go by easy. He said, there are certain things. It's okay if they laugh and joke. They're human beings. You know what I mean? They're just playing with you. It's okay. And plus, you're a rookie. He said, why you joked with me? He said, I thought it was funny. That's what the captain said. He said, call me if you need me. And he walks out. And the dude's standing there. You can see he feels played. You know what I mean? And you could see that he's really offended by the joke that was just played on him. You know? And so after that, the dudes quit talking mung to him, and things went back to normal. But the way that this officer transitioned from being a greenhorn into being a monster, it's a story for another day. He did not appreciate that everybody joked with him, and he became somebody that you did not want to mess with. And we'll talk about this dude again in another video. But give me a like and subscribe to the Pen and the Shank, the most unusual and unique crime and prison channel experience on YouTube. Hit that bell notification so you know when I drop another unusual and unique video about dudes in prison who speak mung. And you know what?